Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to the Beyond Wellness Radio podcast. Feel free and head over to justinhealth.com. We have all of our podcast transcriptions there, as well as video series on different health topics ranging from thyroid to hormones, ketogenic diets, and gluten. While you're there, you can also schedule a consult with myself, Dr. J, and or our colleagues and staff to help dive into any pressing health issues you really want to get to the root cause on. Again, if you enjoy the podcast, feel free and share the information with friends or family, and enjoy the show. And we are live. It's Dr. J here with Evan. Today, we're going to be chatting about the top 5 anti-aging techniques to age gracefully as possible. This is important. This is a good foundation. Even if you're not a health fanatic, I mean, you want to be able to keep the quality of life in your years as you get older. Meaning you want to be able to move, feel good, not be in pain, have energy, being able to cognitively process and think and perform into your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like you were in your 20s and 30s and 40s. So we're going to just give you some simple foundational principles, right? The Pareto principle, the 20% that give you the 80% of the results. And we're going to dive into that here today. Evan, how are we doing today, man?
Doing well. You know, it's funny, people will use the term health nut, and it's almost like a bad thing. People will say health nut like it's something that shouldn't be happening. It's like, well, what are you if you're not a health nut? Are you a health ignorer? You know, I'd much rather prefer to be a health nut than a health ignorer. I want to be 50, 60, 70. I look at some of my aging grandparents. I look at just aging people around me, and I see the decline in people. And I don't want to say I'm afraid of it, but I see it. And I know that we have strategies to slow that down or possibly prevent it. You and I were talking about one of these studies. It's in PubMed on it's in the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine, all about the blue zones. And you see some of these lessons from the world's longest lived people. And I'm like, okay, well, what can we take? I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but what can we take from them, and what are they doing to live to 90? And they have no chronic disease mostly. And you look at even some of the tribal societies, you know, there's not high blood pressure, there's not depression. What are they doing that we're not doing? I think the first thing is that they don't have the level of inflammation that we have. And I know that was on your list of things we wanted to hit on.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different concepts here we're going to kind of touch upon and highlight. And, you know, you talked about the whole health nut thing. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that aren't healthy, and they're reminded about people in their life that are healthy. And it's easy to project your insecurity on someone else versus you take responsibility and accountability. Now, obviously, we want to get people's health up to a level where if they aren't perfect on their diet, they're still going to be able to bounce back. They'll still be adaptive. They can have a glass of wine here or there. Maybe they can cheat a little bit with certain foods and not have major setbacks. But in the end, we want to get people feeling great. And then you get to decide as the person, you know, how good you want to feel. Some people, they come off it a little bit. They feel like crap for days, and that little treat's not worth it. Some, hey, they're not that bad and they're good in a couple hours, right? So everyone's got to feel how adaptive and responsive they are to not being 100% on. And then that's your decision. And so my goal isn't to say you should be a health nut or you should be perfect or you should do 80-20, 80% on, 20% off. My goal is to get you to feel as good as possible. And then you get to make that decision of, you know, what that in between looks like for you.
Yeah. So how does inflammation factor into this? I mean, this is something people throw around. They throw around the term inflammation. I think really you got to kind of break it apart. Are you talking neuroinflammation from toxins? Are you talking like systemic inflammation that you're going to measure on blood work? Is this like bad oils, you know, junky seed oils creating inflammation? Yeah. Is this bad foods? Are these infections like Lyme creating issues with the joints? And that's inflammation there. I mean, I think the word inflammation is kind of overused and abused. So maybe you could kind of tease apart what you mean when you're thinking of this as one of the strategies to address.
Absolutely. Inflammation is a term that's overused, but we're going to use it and be very specific, right? And so inflammation in general is there's a natural buildup and breakdown of the body. Inflammation, when inflammation starts to go out of control, usually there's an excessive breakdown to the body compared to the build up of the body. All right. And so in general, you have certain hormones that help your body deal with inflammation and recover and build up. And then you have the different breakdown of the body, things like cortisol, adrenaline, different catecholamines, different, if your immune system is hyper responding, whether you have imbalances in interleukins and cytokines and immune stimulation, and that could be due to food allergens, that can be due to mold toxins, heavy metals. It could be due to a poor diet, poor sleep, too much, too little exercise. All of these factors play in to this homeostatic balance of breakdown versus build up. And so, of course, we start with the foundations. Of course, you know, we should make sure like, hey, we're not, licking the lead paint on the wall, or, we're not in a moldy home, or, hey, we're not getting pesticides on our food and we're trying to mitigate the animal products that we eat. So they're organic, they're clean, they don't have pesticides and hormones. That's all really good and foundational, right? And then of course, we're looking at the imbalance of fatty acids, because we know certain fats that are more on the omega-6 junky processed side, vegetable oils that are processed and damaged, are going to be really bad. And that starts to make up a really junky cell membrane for us, which isn't good. And we know certain fats, good, healthy grass-fed animal products, are going to be excellent. We know things like grass-fed butter, maybe olive oil, avocados, maybe some nuts or seeds if we're okay there, maybe some high-quality fish. These are going to help put that omega-3 to omega-6 balance in place. And our omega-3 pathways, they feed into certain eicosanoids or prostaglandins that are really anti-inflammatory, where a lot more of the processed foods are going to feed into this omega-6 junky plant-based oils. And again, the reason why the plant-based oils on average tend to be more junky is because they're more processed. To turn them into an oil, the processing of that tends to damage the fats, because the fats are already very delicate. So when you extract canola or soy or safflower, right, you're damaging these, or cottonseed oil, right? You're damaging these fats to extract them into that final liquid byproduct. Maybe some of the exceptions could be like olive oil, if it's cold pressed and extra virgin. Same thing with avocado, probably not as bad, but we want to make sure our fats are really good and clean. So grass-fed butter, ghee, excellent, good, healthy animal fats. They're saturated, so these animal fats tend to be way more stable, right? And the stability is important because our fats, all of our cell membranes have this lipid bilayer in them. And so we are reconstituting that bilayer with the fats that we eat. So if we eat junky fats, one, we're going to deplete a lot of our antioxidant reserves, because our body's going to have to use a lot of antioxidants, vitamin A, C, and E, to stabilize those fats. And two, it's going to make our cell membranes very, let's say, lack of more inflexible, not good communication, right? Not good, not good adaptation, because we want a nice, healthy, fluid cell membrane. So good, healthy, stable fats, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, maybe some olive oil is fine if it's really good quality and it's cold pressed and extra virgin. Maybe some avocados, maybe some nuts and seeds there if you're consuming good omega-3 side by side from, wild Alaskan sockeye, high quality fish that have a good selenium to mercury ratio. That's going to be ideal out of the gates. And so that's one of the best things you can do outside of just avoiding pesticides and inflammatory food allergens like gluten, processed refined sugar, processed grains. That's going to be a really good starting point out of the gates.
Yeah, well said. And you hit on a few other points that we wanted to get into, which is nutrient density. Everything you've mentioned with these good fats and good meats and all of that are going to be super nutrient dense. And then insulin is a big one too, right? I mean, look at people with diabetes. I don't have the paper right in front of me, but the life expectancy is certainly less than someone without diabetes. And so insulin is a big problem. I'm going to look at it right now and give you a number.
Insulin plays a major role, because if we have insulin resistance, where we're making more insulin to get our cells to open up to bring glucose and fuel to the cell, that can cause problems, because our insulin resistance causes our body to need more insulin to knock on that door. Instead of knocking on the door once, we have to knock on it 2, 3, 4 times. And insulin does a couple of things. It can increase blood pressure. That makes our heart having to beat at a higher rate, has to harder and stronger to get blood pumping. So more stress on the heart. It's going to decrease blood flow. And so to areas in the feet, to the genitals, to the extremities, to the brain, you may have decrease in blood flow, which may cause an impairment of getting nutrition and oxygenation there. Obviously, it can create oxidative stress on all of our little proteins, all of our little vasculature in the body, because the more you sugarcoat proteins in the body, whether it's our eye vessels, whether it's fingers, toes, that creates oxidative stress because of glycation, right? So think of the creme brulee at the steakhouse. They take the blowtorch over it, right? And it starts to brown on top. That's glycation, right? That sugar coating is oxidizing from that flame. That happens in our body. And that can decrease blood flow. It decreases, fluidity and flexibility. There's more inflammation. You start to have problems with the eyes, libido, being able to perform well because you don't have good oxygenation. And then, of course, you're depleting a lot of your antioxidant reserves, because now there's so much oxidative stress from this glycation that's happening, right? Your body has to use a lot of antioxidants from the food to stabilize all these cells because of all the free radical stress that's happening.
Yeah, it depends on which paper. There were like 3 different ones I was looking at. One was talking about 5-year reduction in life expectancy with diabetes. Another was talking 8 years. Another was talking 10. So I guess it depends. And of course, type 1 and type 2 are different. But in general, I mean, we know that this is a it's a comorbidity with a lot of issues we're seeing now too. So this is not, if you can avoid it, obviously type 1, some would argue, is out of your control, but type 2, you certainly have control over that, and you can prevent
Well,
that and reverse it.
yeah, type 1's still in your control. I mean, I guess the part of that that's the hardest is most people that are affected by that are kids. And
Yeah.
usually between 5 and 15, there's an autoimmune condition that sets in and starts to destroy the beta cells of the pancreas. And there's a strong correlation with dairy and grains and refined sugar. So every parent out there listening, especially if you have autoimmune in your family history, you really got to have your kids be healthy out of the gates. And so that's, important out of the gates. Also, cognitive wise, right? People are worried about Alzheimer's and dementia. There's a strong mechanism with dementia in the plaquing in the brain being driven by insulin resistance. It's been called for over a decade, Alzheimer's is going to essentially referred to as type 3 diabetes. And so your brain becomes resistant to the glucose as a fuel source in the brain. And there's a lot of plaquing that forms in the brain due to the fact that insulin, the insulin degrading enzyme that helps clean up plaque in the brain, it can clean up plaque or it can go and soak up insulin. And when you're over secreting insulin, that enzyme is more prone and focused on cleaning up insulin and less prone to work on the plaque. So that plaquing and inflammation can go up because that enzyme is too focused over here cleaning up the insulin. So the goal is that we use diet and lifestyle strategies and exercise strategies to lower the insulin. And then that's insulin degrading enzyme has more allocation to go after and clean up the plaque in the brain. And then, of course, we know if we're burning more fat for fuel, that those ketones, one, they're not going to require insulin. And two, our brain and our neurological system can use ketones for a fuel source as well. So then we're not only relying on one fuel source for the brain, we're also relying on ketones. A lot of data on that out of Harvard by this doctor named Dr. Veach, looking at ketones and fuel for the brain. So that's a really important thing. If you're into and focused on Alzheimer's and dementia prevention, you have to be hyper-focused on utilizing ketones for fuel. You have to be hyper-focused on keeping insulin low because it's very hard to, one, utilize insulin for fuel. Very hard to utilize ketones for fuel if your insulin levels are high. High levels of insulin prevent your body from burning fat. Ketones, a fat byproduct, right? Free fatty acid, glycerol, ketone metabolites. You break that down. You need nice low insulin levels to break that down, and then you can start burning it.
What about people like eating a donut and then they go take exogenous ketones?
That may be palliative from a cognitive kind of boost standpoint. Like I'm going to study for something for an hour or two or read this book and really be into it, but that's not fixing the underlying issue. You need to shift your hormones so you can be in a overall fat burning state. So you need to increase things like hormone sensitive lipase, and you need to decrease insulin. Those are on opposite seesaws. So to get hormone sensitive lipase, these are fat digesting, fat breaking down enzymes. To increase those, you have to drop insulin low to do that. Yeah, and again, when you drop insulin low, it's not just about restricting carbohydrates. This is kind of where the carbohydrate thesis kind of goes out the window, is you can still increase insulin and blood sugar by eating inflammatory foods. So if you're getting exposed to mold, for instance, that could still increase cortisol and get your blood sugar higher without actually consuming glucose or carbohydrate rich food. So you could have mold coming in, you could have heavy metals coming in, you could just be eating soy protein or artificial sweeteners that may not necessarily impact your blood sugar directly, but they could be having a hormonal influence, pushing that blood sugar out of balance. Of course, the hormones in the food, right? The pesticides in food, all these things can play a role. So it's not just the macros, it's the macros, but also the quality of those macros. And again, keep it simple, right? Old foods don't cause new disease. If you're consuming grass-fed butter and you have a serious dairy issue, that could be a problem too. So you got to look at the whole picture: food quality, micro and macronutrients, and the toxins that could be in those food, and the food allergy component.
Yeah, well said. It shouldn't be that revolutionary, but what you're saying is revolutionary because you still have very, very influential bodybuilders that are in that mainstream mindset still. Well, they'll post a picture of a cheat meal and it's literally like, hey, I'm going to go eat a dozen donuts. And then they're promoting this exogenous ketone supplement. It just drives me nuts to see that. You're going to save so much more money, by the way, too. Ketones are something that you and I do have, and I have sold professional ketones to clients to help them. But man, it's so much easier and essentially free to make your own ketones.
Yeah. And if you want to do it with these healthy diet and lifestyle strategies, that's fine. Also, you have people that have these so-called cheat days. A lot of books having these cheat days. Is a cheat day worth it if it takes you 4 days to recover?
What about the immune response? I mean,
Probably
some would
not.
argue the immune response of antibodies for your thyroid could be months. So,
Yeah, and then there's that. I have Hashimoto's, right? I keep my antibodies virtually non-existent by doing healthy things. You know, there's some data, if you look at it, that your antibodies can be up for months. And so you have to acknowledge that as well. And so, yeah, you got to know where you're at. So don't listen to these people that say, you know, don't cheat, you know, that you cheat, live life, this and that. Well, it depends where you're at and how negatively impact I'm going to be for months later. And honestly, there's a lot of healthy cheats out there, right? There's a lot of healthy grain-free, gluten-free cheat options. So if you really want to cheat, it's not an all or nothing thing. There's some in-between mitigation tools that you can utilize by choosing healthier options and also by utilizing more enzymes, activated charcoal, glutathione, extra things that are very helpful.
totally. I know we want to get into sleep. That's one of the next on the list, but just want to mention something we were looking at here earlier, which was hyperbaric oxygen. And this is pretty cool. There was clinical trials done on hyperbaric oxygen and how it was actually reversing two of the biological processes associated with aging in human cells. That was the title of it. And long story short, they found that it was very, very protective, neuroprotective. You can really, really support the brain. We've seen massive reversal of traumatic brain injury. And you've seen a lot of that in the NFL, for example, people doing hyperbaric oxygen to reverse brain injury. So I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I just think it's a cool strategy that you could and should look into if you are having some cognitive decline. Maybe for a long time you've had high insulin and maybe your brain has suffered. Maybe you're considering the possibility of early dementia or Alzheimer's type symptoms. You know, hyperbaric is something that's been shown to really, really help blunt the effects of the damage to the brain. I've done hyperbaric. It was amazing for me. Even just my first session, my toes got so warm. And I've had poor blood flow issues as long as I could remember as a kid. Maybe mold or infections drove my hypercoagulability, they call it, more of a thickening blood. So I do enzymes to help. But man, I tell you, the hyperbaric, whoa, it warmed me up so much. So this is a really, really cool tool.
If I was an NFL athlete, I would be sleeping in one of these at least half the week. I imagine probably some of the better ones are just because
Totally.
the inflammation, the generation that's happening. You know, you really have to work on the repair side of that equation for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a good tool. It's a good palliative tool for sure.
Yeah. All right. You want to hit on sleep?
Let's do it. So sleep's important, right? We are going to make specific neuropeptides that help repair brain, cognitive, body, right? Growth hormone, physical structure. So of course, you know, getting to bed matters. Getting to bed before midnight matters. You know, sleeping 7 to 8 hours matters. That's going to help with repair. Getting to bed before midnight really taps into that growth hormone that peaks between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., which helps repair your body. A lot of neurogenic repair as you start to help your neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, GABA, repair, regenerate, help your body deal with stress, think, help a lot of the inflammation in the brain repair and recover overnight. And so sleep is really important. Again, inflammation affects sleep, blood sugar affects sleep, and adequate levels of magnesium and amino acids that become the building blocks of melatonin play a big role with sleep. So if we're not getting enough good proteins, that's a problem. If we're not digesting those proteins, that's a problem. Infections can affect that. Not enough HCl, not enough enzyme. Just a poor diet can cause that. Too much carbs create blood sugar swings, and that can cause increases in cortisol. And cortisol and melatonin are on an opposite rhythm. So as cortisol goes up, melatonin goes down. So if you're doing things that affect your cortisol, you may have low melatonin. Low melatonin will be harder to get into those deeper phases of sleep where a lot of repair and regeneration happen.
Yeah. My first book was on sleep. It was called REM Rehab. I still sell it, although I don't promote it much. And it was all because I suffered significantly from sleep issues after coming off third shift to pay for college. It
Oh,
was just,
totally.
oh man, my sleep was a wreck. I mean, I would work from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. I would sleep all day. My circadian rhythm was wrecked. And in the process, my gut was wrecked too. So I kind of covered the impact of the cortisol and the melatonin rhythm. If that's screwed up, your gut can be screwed up too. There's a circadian rhythm to detoxification. There's a circadian rhythm to gut motility. And all that was messed up when you're working night shift or when you're working swing shift. There's nurses, several studies on night shift nurses having a massive increase in breast cancer. I interviewed a guy, Dr. Richard Hansler. Hopefully he's still alive. He'll literally be pushing 100 by now. When I interviewed him years ago, he was one of my early podcast guests, like 2012. He was like 93. So yeah, he's probably 100. Hope I haven't seen any death reports. Hopefully he's still alive. But man, this guy blew my mind on sleep. You know, he developed brighter and more blue light bulbs for GE for decades. And he has a tremendous amount of guilt because of what he did, which was creating brighter, more
Wow.
blue light bulbs. And so now he's really educating people on sleep, and sleep during pregnancy has actually been shown to reduce the risk of issues in the offspring. So for pregnant women listening, you really got to prioritize this and make sure you're candling down at night. We use salt lamps, we use night lights. We just have a bedtime routine of, we try to just not do anything too intense mentally. Like, I'm not going to open up a spreadsheet at 9 p.m. I'm just not going to. I'm going to try to focus on things. I'm going to do either a guided meditation with headphones, or I'm going to do some jazz music or classical music or something. You've got to have some sort of, I would just say, downshift. And that was actually one of the things in that Blue Zone study, is one of they call it the Power Nine. These are these 9 evidence-based denominators that the 100-year-olds believe to slow the aging process. One of those was downshifting. And they always talk about how this culture does this and that culture does that. But anyway, it was either prayer, it was napping, it was meditation, it was some sort of downshift. And I think in American society, that's not really welcomed. It's not welcome to downshift, because it's hustle, 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 work, work, work. You're not working hard enough. That's why you're not successful. But I think part of success comes from that downshift and prioritizing sleep. Even Jeff Bezos says, no matter what he does, whether you like the guy or not, whatever he says, 8 hours of sleep is a priority for him. No matter what part of the world he's in, he's prioritizing those 8 hours because it impacts your decision making and all of that. So, I mean, this thing, sleep is like that spider web that goes into every aspect of your life, your mood, your emotional regulation, decision making, all of it.
Yeah, and I made a really big priority the last 2 months to really get to bed by 10:30 every night. So I'm getting to bed by 10:30, 11 at the latest, and I'm sleeping minimum 8 hours a night. Makes a big difference, especially getting to bed before 12 really does help. And so, different nutritional strategies that I'll plug in to help. I'll do some GABA, some L-theanine. I'll do some magnesium. And again, high levels of blood sugar, right? One of the biggest impacts when there's studies on taking college kids and making them pre-diabetic by, well, what they did is they actually restricted their sleep. And the first side effect they saw restricting these college kids' sleep after a couple of weeks was they started turning pre-diabetic. Their blood sugar levels started getting off. So it's kind of like we talk about blood sugar, right? You don't just have to have poor diet to have blood sugar issues. You can have aberrant stress hormones because of poor sleep, right? And so it's like when you have one problem, that one can turn to two, two can turn to three. It's kind of like the old Gremlins movie, when you put water on them, they multiply. It's kind of like that. So like a lot of these issues, when you start to have one, you're going to have two. When you start to have two, you're going to have three, because things spiral out of control. And then also when you start having blood sugar issues and poor sleep, guess what starts to happen to your cravings? Well, you start craving more refined processed food, and then that starts to create more issues with blood sugar, which then makes more issues with sleep. You see how all these things kind of, they spiral out of control, man. It's like water on the Gremlins. So yeah, you got to keep an eye on that. Really prioritize sleep. Understand how everything connects. If you understand how it connects, I think it gives you a lot more motivation to have those foundationals like really solidified.
Oh yeah. Well, the mood issues too, right? I mean, I talked about like anxiety, depression, a lot of these issues with mental health, a lot of those are related to poor sleep. I mean, I I try to survey as many young teenagers as I can who are clients of mine, and almost every single one of them is sleeping with their iPhone either next to them in their bed or literally under their pillow, not on airplane mode. These kids are sleeping with these iPhones, and they're waking up in the middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m., and they're just scrolling on Instagram, blasting themselves with blue light, which we know is not good. They're getting hit with the radiation every 2 seconds from the cell phone connecting to the cell tower. So, I mean, I think you really, really have to prioritize this, because let's say now you're anxious, you're depressed, and like you mentioned, you're fatigued. So maybe you go for like caffeine with sugar. Now you screw up your blood sugar even more. You're on the cortisol roller coaster. I think sleep is one of those things where you make it or break it. Like, this is a really, really one of the most important pillars of life. And I had a client the other day say that you and I need to talk about our kids more. They were like, you and Justin, like, you're one of the few guys out there, functional medicine guys, that have kids, because you got all these other people that are like doing podcasts and stuff, but they don't have kids. So they don't have to do what we're doing, like working full time plus managing 2 young children. They were saying it's an incredible feat and we need to like brag about it, I guess, but they also want us to just share more. And I think for you, I'm glad that you're getting to bed earlier, because when you got 2 kids, you kind of have to, because the kids are up so early in the morning that if you're not getting that 10:30 bedtime, you're going to be sabotaged, because 7 a.m. comes around. Those kids are going to be up. Daddy, where's breakfast?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're blessed. I think both of us are blessed in that way that we're able to do well enough where our wives can stay at home full time. And my wife already had a very long career and is essentially retired already. So she's already been there, done that at a C-level, executive level. And it's like, all right, she's ready for the mom life. But man, if there wasn't someone to be there at home full time, it'd be a lot harder just because there's a lot of stuff always going on. And it helps to have someone there. Not everyone's in that position. So if you can set yourself up from a family life to be in that position, that's great. If you can't, we just got to play the best hand that we have, right? But at least, things that have helped us over the years when we have been more busier is if you can go find pre-made meal service, that's great. Or if you can kind of cook some of your meals more in bulk, or you can get really good at doing an instant pot meal where you have the food just thrown in there and you cooked in 30 minutes while everyone's getting ready or showering or bathing at night. And then you have a nice meal while everyone's getting cleaned up. You have that meal cooking, right? So just try to find strategies that are, I call them net time, right? There's no extra time to do it because you're already doing something else you have to do anyway. So you just got to try to plug those things into your schedule if these habits are really tough to kind of utilize, and just get a habit going on these things. So like we have habitual things dialed in where we're doing magnesium and GABA or theanine before bed if we need it, or we already have the habit of having the low blue light night bulbs in everyone's room that needs a night light. My kids are a little bit younger, so they need that a little bit. If we do too dark, they actually wake up in the middle of the night. So we do the low blue light night bulbs. That's helpful. And then having the good air filtration and keeping everything clean, keeping the temperature really good for optimal deep sleep, right around 69, 70 degrees. So doing all those little strategies can help. And obviously the diet stuff too.
Yeah, detox too. I mean, I've talked about it before, I think on previous podcasts with you or maybe another interview, but binders are really helpful. So my wife takes charcoal before bed and she sleeps better. If she doesn't take it, her sleep is not as restful. So if you do have some sort of a toxin issue, we know that toxins affect hormones and that affects your sleep quality. So mycotoxins are a big one, and insomnia is way up on the list of mold exposure symptoms. So if you find that you're sleeping better in certain environments than other, it could be other factors, but try it. If you're trying some of the sleep support, you're mentioning the GABA, the theanine, magnesium threonate, those kind of things, and you're not getting the relief, you may want to add in something like motherwort, which may calm the nervous system, maybe some passion flower, or you can come in from the detox perspective. Try a little bit of binder before bed, see if that improves your sleep too. And then if you need help, obviously reach out to us because there's a lot of functional issues we can see on paper that are going to help us to understand what's going on with your sleep. You can try all these, as you would call it, natural palliative care, like these herbs and botanicals, but what's leading you to need that? Like you shouldn't necessarily need GABA, extra GABA supplementally to sleep. You should be able to do that on your own. So what's impairing that is my question. I'm always asking why. And if you're stubborn and you ask why enough and you use labs, most of the time you can get to the bottom of it.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So if we look at everything, right, we talked about nutrient density. We talked about inflammation. We talked about blood sugar. We talked about sleep. Obviously, there are some palliatives that kind of plug into some of these things, right? And things that help with the inflammation are going to be things like the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, right? I'd also say we could plug in different fasting techniques to the inflammation as well. And again, fasting can be really helpful just to increase cellular autophagy, help clean up proteins in the body, right? Cellular autophagy is just cleaning different things up in the body with our immune system, which starts to gobble up proteins, gobble up inflammation. Obviously, if you're inflamed because of foods, not eating can actually help reduce inflammation. How about that? But it's not magic because you're also you got to have a routine when you're getting good anti-inflammatory nutrient dense foods in there. And then of course there's more long-term strategies like intermittent fasting where you're just restricting your feeding window. And the goal of that really comes down to some of these cellular autophagy mechanisms of cleaning up proteins. Also mTOR, decreasing mTOR can help with anti-aging. That's mammalian targeted rapamycin, kind of plugs into that whole intermittent fasting insulin thing. And then on top of that, I would say intermittent fasting. Yeah, well, just to kind of highlight, intermittent fasting is just restricting the feeding window. So the goal is that you're still getting the nutrients you need, but you're just maybe compressing that window between 12 and 6 or 12 and 8, right? Versus eating all day. Ideally, eating enough food so you can last 5 hours to the next meal. That's great too. So we don't want to be grazing. Even if it's healthy food, we don't want to be grazing all day because you're just stimulating insulin every time you eat. So eat a little bit in the morning, go 4 or 5 hours, don't eat again. Get enough protein and fat at each meal, go 4 or 5 hours. So even during the day, just get the snack mindset out, eat enough so you're good.
Man, I tell you, I haven't talked too much about this because I almost forget to celebrate it. But I mean, there was a time where I was eating like every 2 to 3 hours, especially when I was doing bodybuilding, 10 years ago. I was eating 2 to 3 meals, stuffing myself full of food as much as I can just to bulk up. And then that kind of, I don't want to say wrecked my metabolism. I was never obese. I was always lean, but I would say it wrecked my metabolism in that I was constantly grazing, as you mentioned, this snack mindset. And now it's so it just feels so good to be able to eat. Like if I'll do a grass-fed steak for breakfast, just to have that and not need anything for 5 hours. Now, if it's a heavy day with clients and there's a lot of stress involved, maybe 4 hours instead of 5 or 6 on the eating. But man, I tell you, just imagine how much more productive the world would be if people got off that blood sugar snacking grazing roller coaster. I mean, it just occupies so much of your time. Like, I'm hungry, I'm going to go for this, and instead of a candy bar, now people go for like a protein bar, hopefully, or maybe pistachios or something. But wow, just think of how much time is spent on that. Oh, I'm hungry, I got to feed the beast again every 2 hours.
100%. And so movement's important. Don't get me wrong. Try to at least do a Tabata or a simple circuit. I'm going to go and use my Concept D rower in a minute. I'm going to do 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off, 10-second cool down in between for about 8 minutes. I'm going to do about 8 to 10 sets of that.
What do you
And then
put it
throughout,
on? I'm glad you finally got your rower. What do you have the one? It's got the little like triangle, like 1 to 10, right? What are you
yeah, I
putting it
think I
on?
have it on between 7 and 8.
Okay, yeah, I like a little
So
heavy too.
yeah, I like a little more resistance so I can go. I mean, I like rowers just because one, you're getting the lower body in, you're using, that their hamstring muscles to kind of curl and bring the seat back down. And then I like the fact that you're bringing your body more into extension like this, where, we're just naturally typing all day. So I want to really get into extension, really work on my posture there and be able to go hard. Where if you're like, elliptical, or if you're biking, you're kind of like in this flex position. I want to be really extended.
I saw a little bit of footage of the Olympics, and I tell you, between the sprinters and the rowers, those are like the most muscularly perfect specimens. Like the rowers, I mean, great physique. Sprinters, great physique. I mean, it's just those are very like I love those exercises.
Sprinting's great. I mean, you just, if you do it, you want to have a feel where you can go run on and not have that impact. You can go to a track and all that, but it's a little bit more impact on your joints. And so as you get older, I think it's fine as you get older, but the nice thing about rowing is I just don't have that impact every day. So one, I still get that cardio. I still get that really high, intense, burst of energy, but I'm not quite having all that impact. So as I get older, I just want less impact on my joints. I want to really be able to have good joints as I get older. And so
Yeah.
I think sprinting's great. Try to have surfaces that are going to be a little bit softer, or if you can do other things that have less impact, but still get the same result, I think that's better in the long run, especially if you want to do it daily.
Yeah, those like playgrounds that have those like foamy type things. I wish the world was made of those. You've been on those
I
things
know.
with a little bounce to them.
Yeah, exactly. But you can always go to a football field or something like that too. But it's just easier. Like, there's my rower. It's in the corner. I just go jump on it. Takes 6 minutes. Done. Right.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have those kind of things. And so for anyone listening, you can get a rower like that. That's something really easy. You can do a Tabata or some type of peak 8 interval thing. That's the easiest thing out of the gates because that's 5 to 10 minutes a day max. And so then do that. And then if you want to pick, I recommend, pick 3 or 4 movements a day, whether it's a push or pull or a twist or a bend, and then just do 2 or 3 sets of that. And so an easy thing to have in your office, have a kettlebell in your office, have some push-up bars. Those are easy things.
It's so
Kettlebells.
easy. It's so easy
Yeah.
not to exercise in the modern world. Like if you think about how easy it is to just go out of your house, 2 steps into your car, take it to the office. Maybe if you have to go high, you get on the elevator, sit at the desk, go back in the car, go back home. Or even like, man, I tell you sometimes like, which I haven't done much of, but just going on like cross country tours where if you go in the car to the airport, you get on the plane, you get to the new city. It's like, wow, I've traveled thousands of miles without even lifting a finger. Like this is crazy.
Yep.
Versus when you look at like some of these blue zone, longevity, centenarian type people, it says here, quote, move naturally. The world's longest lived people don't pump iron, run marathons, or join gyms. Instead, they live in environments that constantly nudge them into moving without thinking about it. So it's just
Yeah.
built into their lifestyle. And that's how it's always been for all of human evolution.
Yeah. Easiest thing out of the gates is get a nice little Fitbit, try to get 10,000 steps on it and try to do something explosive for 5 or 10 minutes a day. That's it. I mean, if you can do that, great. If you can do 20 or 30, even better. But I think the more important thing is just being able to keep up with it. So like set the bar super low. So it's like, oh, I can do that, you know? And then once you do it, then step up from there. But just try to have something simple, have a couple of tools at your disposal so you can do it.
We're moving here. I mean, people might not tell, but I mean, you're standing, I'm standing. I do sit sometimes during the day. I don't stand for 8 hours. I do
I think
sit.
it's good to do a combination of the two. You know, you can do a third, a third, a third. So I'll stand, I'll walk, I'll bike, and I'll sit during the day,
I'll
all
try to
throughout the day.
move. Yeah, I mean, even sometimes I'll put my desk on the lower setting. If I'm on a call, I'll put the desk on the lowest setting to where I can even go onto a knee and just stretch. And I can just stretch out even on a knee like that. And then I'll
Yeah.
be able to sit, stand. So I think it's important. I mean, I'm not saying that a desk is an optimal job, no matter if you're standing or not. You're still looking at a screen. It's still unnatural. But I think there's ways that you can mitigate it. And I do try to balance out screen time versus looking into the distance. I mean, there's a lot of studies on like the
Yep.
myopia that's taken over. Like I think it's something crazy, like 95% of children in China have the nearsightedness now. They really can't see far distances, the myopia. They're all looking at screens, which there's an advantage to that, to looking at screens, but man, you got to look far. So I try to
Look
look far.
far.
There's,
Yeah. Look
yeah.
far and then invest in low flicker, low blue light screens. Spend a little bit more money on your screen if you're going to be on it all day and get low flicker and low blue light.
Yeah. And I run Iris all day. I've got it
Yeah.
on like,
Iris
I've
or
got
on
it
your
on like
phone, night shift.
2800, like 2800 Kelvin. You can go much lower, but blue
Yep.
light during the day is okay. I
Yeah.
know.
That's natural anyway. But you know, for me, it's like I'm under, you know, full spectrum lighting right now to do this podcast, you know, so there's a lot of lights that are naturally there. So yeah, those are good. You know, have a good setup. If you're going to be around technology during the day, do your best to mitigate it. During the end of the day, throw on some blue blocking sunglasses, which is great. Or, you know, make sure your prescription has some blue blocking in there. That can be helpful too. That can be great. So just kind of recapping, I think we talked about nutrient density, inflammation, good fats helping that, movement, exercise, how to make it part of your routine. We talked about palliative techniques to decrease the inflammation, like hyperbaric. Talked about intermittent fasting. That kind of plugs into the inflammation. I think we hit, it's about 5 big techniques. There's some overlapping principles that go under different ones. And of course, sleep. Sleep plays a really important role in some of the nutrients to help work on supporting sleep. And then, of course, a lot of the nutrients that help with sleep. If you have gut issues, obviously, you know, low enzyme, low acid infections, SIBO, parasites that are affecting absorption of things, that can also be a big player. So I hope that resonates with everyone. If it does, and you want to dive in deeper, we're here to help serve you. And you can head over to evanbrand.com to work with Evan. You can head over to justinhealth.com to work with myself, Dr. J. We are available worldwide for you guys via FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, or just regular phone chat. And we recommend programs, do labs, have specific therapeutic protocols that are in our wheelhouse to kind of support and help with healing. And hope that makes sense. And if you guys enjoy the content, give us a thumbs up. Put your comments below. Make sure you share with family or friends that can benefit. We try to be kind of 99% just solid information because our true mission is really to help as many people as possible. We may see a fraction of 1% of people listening to this, but if you want to take that step and be part of that 1%, we're here to help you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. And thanks for mentioning the links. And then we could always do part 2. I mean, there's a social aspect to this too.
Yes.
I mean,
Yep.
social isolation, loneliness, it's the new smoking, you know, I mean, there's a lot of other part 2, part 3s on this, but I think this is a good summary for people to dive in. So like Justin said, if you need help, reach out, justinhealth.com or evanbrand.com. We're here for you and we'll be in touch next week.